of the Dorton and Duckett Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. The man's fro keeps growing every single week, folks. Nicholas Duckett, how we doing today?
Davis Buzzerbeater, we're doing pretty good. How's the
Yeah.
Knights fan doing?
Yeah, well,
I should rub it in. That's not nice of me.
yeah, well, we lost. That was probably our best chance to win, and we didn't. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
I mean, they came back from 3-1 twice, so we'll see. But yeah, that win would have been huge considering they were losing that game like the entire time.
Yeah, that would have been pretty ideal if you ask me.
That would have been a huge steal. Would have been a bad loss for the Lakers.
But besides that, we'll get into some sports news here. This is kind of over the combination of the last week and a half or so. So some of the stuff, like I said, is a little bit older, but we haven't been able to do the podcast until now. So we're going to talk about it now anyways. So we'll just get into it right here. Steve Nash, head coach for the Nets. First off, obviously he has not had head coaching experience. He has been a part of coaching staffs, training staffs before. What do you think he's going to bring to the table for the Brooklyn Nets to maybe get them over that hump and make them a solid team?
What is he going to bring exactly? I mean, no idea, but I'll tell you what, when I heard Steve Nash got the job, I thought to myself, yeah, that seems like a good hire. Like, I can see him being a good coach. Now, granted, in history, at least in the NBA, seems like the really good players that become coaches normally don't end up being that well. It's the guys who are more so, role players on teams that become really good coaches. Right. You could argue it was Mark Jackson's team, but Steve Kerr's done very well coaching, whereas like Isaiah Thomas did not, right? Mm-hmm. But, Steve Nash is more of a, granted, I guess you could say, well, so is Jason Kidd, but Steve Nash is kind of like a distributor, right? He wasn't like a scoring first guy. To me, if you were one of the best point guards in the league because of distributing the basketball, I'd say that would correlate well with the team because you want, especially if you don't have superstars, what do you want? Well, you want good crisp passing, you want good team chemistry. I think Nash could be the guy that gives them that, but I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of hard to know what to expect, but the fact that he has little coaching experience, who cares? Like, the only way to get experience is to get a job in the first place. Like, come on.
Yeah. I think this is going to work out really well. He worked with Kevin Durant when Kevin Durant was on the Warriors. Steve Nash was like a trainer, assist. I'm not exactly sure what his title was, but he had an authority type position with the Warriors when he was there. So obviously they have some familiarity there. So Kevin Durant probably was advocating him for a little bit, and then which I'm assuming then he did the same thing to Kyrie Irving about Steve Nash. So I like it. You mentioned too, Steve Nash, obviously Hall of Famer. He won 2 MVPs. Now, granted,
back to back, I think.
And granted, one of them, should it have gone his way? I don't know. Probably not. But nonetheless, he won it. He did win it. And that just really is more impressive, the fact that you won back-to-back MVPs as primarily a distributor. Now, Steve Nash could, he could score the ball when needed, but he was mainly a distributor. And for him to win back-to-back MVPs as a primary distributor, I think is really outstanding. And it just kind of is going to show how well he is a coach.
He's probably, there's an argument to be made that he's the best, passer ever. Obviously Stockton leads the league in assists by a long shot in NBA history. But, Nash averaged, he must have averaged, 13 assists a game for a year or two.
Probably. Now, I also saw something today that Steve Nash said he is willing to put Kevin Durant at all 5 positions this year. What do you think about that?
Like the Houston lineup? No. The NBA nowadays is not about big men. A big man by himself is not going to win you a finals, but that being said, I don't think you should just totally abandon them and put Kevin Durant at the 5?
Well, he said that he's willing to put Kevin Durant, play him at all 5 positions. So he's willing to play him point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center.
No, I disagree with that. If you have Kevin Durant playing center, that doesn't sound like a very good offense to me, but I don't know. the NBA nowadays, you're practically unless you're a true center, you're pretty much positionless. Like nowadays, there's practically not even a such thing as a point guard and a small forward. At least if you're a superstar, Giannis is probably a power forward. LeBron's probably a small forward, but they practically play point guard half the game, if not the whole game, anyways. So, but no, I don't think putting Durant at like a 5. Not that it would be a true 5. You go back down this guy, and we're gonna feed you, and you'd be like Shaquille O'Neal. But I don't think that sounds like a very good idea to me. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the guy is very versatile. He's a pretty underrated defender, a long guy. Obviously, he can score from anywhere on the court. One of the best scorers we've ever seen. So who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens. What comes of it.
Durant is a stud. When healthy, he's the second best player in the league. But honestly, if Kyrie's on that team, they're not going anywhere. Just saying. If I were the Nets, I would trade Kyrie Irving for a bag of popcorn at this point.
I'm interested to see how they do with a healthy Durant, healthy Kyrie Irving. If they get a finals off of it, amazing. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but
I want them to be good for like the Eastern Conference's sake. I mean, I'm really not a big Durant or Irving fan, not at all. So I don't. I like the Nets and I like Dinwiddie and LeVert. But, like, for the Eastern Conference's sake, it would make things interesting if they are really good competing with the Celtics, Raptors, Bucks, assuming Giannis stays, which I think he will. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't expect a whole lot from them. It depends how, like, Dinwiddie and LeVert, like, the guys who kept them afloat this time without Kyrie and whatnot, are going to be the guy. If they're going to have a good role yet. Otherwise, they're not going to go anywhere, I don't think.
Jarrett Allen too, solid center too.
Love that guy. Love his hair.
Yeah, you and him got something in common there. Both got pretty big froze.
Yeah, I wish I was as good at basketball as Jarrett Allen, but
Oh man. So one head coach in, another one out. Mike D'Antoni has told the Houston Rockets that he's going to be stepping down as their head coach. He's going to be leaving. So first off, what does this mean for the Rockets? And secondly, where do you see D'Antoni potentially going?
Everybody seems to think he's going to go to the Sixers, so I guess I'll just buy into what everybody else is saying and say he'll go to the Sixers. So yeah, I guess And who Houston's going to get? No idea. No idea. I know that's a pretty bad take right there, but honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what that means for Houston as far as, like who they're going to go after. I know D'Antoni is a really good coach. He's been around the league a long, long time with a lot of different teams. Personally, I don't know if the 76ers are still going to do much with him. I mean, he's a good coach, but he's never really been known for his defense. He's kind of mainly been an offensive first kind of coach, and he's had some lethal offenses in his career, so it's obviously shown out well. But the 76ers, they have played good defense before, and so maybe the offensive side of things is just what they need with D'Antoni. So I would probably lead to be thinking that D'Antoni would probably go to the 76ers if I were to make a prediction. It is funny, though. It seems like anytime there's a coaching availability that Mike D'Antoni's name is always thrown in there, regardless of if he's coaching on a team or not. It just seems how it is.
I do think D'Antoni's a good coach. Like a lot of people say, you're not going to win one with him. Like maybe not. Steve Nash in his 2 MVP years, his coach was D'Antoni. The Suns were like consistently the best or second best team in the West.
Yeah.
But the Lakers always beat them, or the Spurs in the playoffs. The Rockets have always been good, but they never get over the hump. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if you really have the teams that should have won a finals. I mean, the Suns probably should have at least made one. But, obviously Harden's the main reason the Rockets have been so good. But if D'Antoni never won. Harden was there before D'Antoni, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Like, if D'Antoni never went, like, as soon as D'Antoni went there, that's when they really started to be really good. Like, I think he's a very good coach. Is he going to get you there? Finals? Maybe not, which at the end of the day, yes, that's all that matters. But I think he's a good coach. I'd be willing to give him a shot, definitely.
Maybe the Timberwolves give him a call?
No, the Timberwolves never make any smart business decisions. Like I said, it sounds like everybody thinks he's going to go to the Sixers. I do think that would be a good role or a good spot
You're not going to see a bigger Minnesota Timberwolves hater than Nick Duckett, folks. That's for dang sure.
I'm not a hater. I just tell it how it is, boy. You suck. I'm going to tell everybody you suck because they suck.
Some people don't like to hear the truth.
Truth hurts.
Oh, gosh. Alrighty, so we're going to go into some extensions here that happened in the NFL. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them to talk about that happened recently. I guess we'll begin with, I believe, what was the first one in DeAndre Hopkins extension. 2 years, $54.5 million, 42.75 of it guaranteed. Now, Mr. Duckett, I already know your take on it, but for the fans at home that don't know it, let's hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, you know how I feel. It's dumb. Now, granted, the 2 weeks he's been with the Cardinals, he's been pretty good. And he set his career mark for receptions in the first game. So, I mean, and people are going to overreact to what I say next, but it's a terrible contract. It's a terrible extension. That's not to say you don't want to give. That's not to say you'd be better off just getting rid of him, and that's not to say he's not good or you don't want him. But wide receivers don't win you Super Bowls. They just don't. Now you do running back. Now you have to have some. Like the Vikings don't have Diggs this year, and they look bad. Like Thielen's the only guy even touching a pass. Like I'm not saying you're going to be fine without him. You still need something there. But typically, look at the best wide receivers in football and the best running backs in football. They're not the guys winning Super Bowls. Tyreek Hill won one, but it's because he's got Mahomes. You know, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, all those guys, they barely even win playoff games. Wide receivers, you got Odell, who might be overrated, but Odell, Julio Jones, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Julio was in the Super Bowl, but for the most part, those guys don't win. The best running back to win a Super Bowl the last, 6 years, I don't know, Marshawn Lynch, if that was even within the last 6 years. The best wide receiver, probably Tyreek Hill. D lineman, defense, offensive line, and quarterbacks get you the wins. And to pay a wide receiver $27 million a year is asinine. And people are like, well, nowadays you win with quarterbacks on rookie contracts. That is totally 100% true. But this extension is for 4 years from now. Kyler Murray is not going to be on a rookie contract in 4 years. Who are you going to pay when you're paying? And it's not to say they're not going to be good. And you would know, I'm about as high on the Cardinals as anybody can be right now.
Yeah.
I think the only team in the league that has a brighter future than the Cardinals is the Chiefs, who also have a bright present, obviously, and that's only because of Patrick Mahomes. But in 3 years, now granted the salary cap is probably going to go up a bit, but if you're paying DeAndre Hopkins $27 million, along with the contract Murray's going to eventually get, who are you going to pay on defense? You're not going to win it with just Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. So I think it's a terrible contract. It's not like not paying him $27 million means he's out the door. I find it very hard to believe you couldn't have, which still would have been way too much, but I find it hard to believe you couldn't have been like, hey, 22 a mil. He's really going to turn that down? I doubt that. So I think it's a terrible extension. Plus, what's the rush? He's already signed for another 3 years. What on earth is the rush?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do I know?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is my take on it. 9 times out of 10, I am agreeing with you in that you don't need a wide receiver when obviously you need a wide receiver, you want competent wide receivers, but at the end of the day, quarterbacks can make really good quarterbacks can make well with average wide receivers. And usually you can win games with that. Now, obviously, hell yeah, does it help to have Julio Jones on your team? Does it help to have Tyreek Hill on your team? 100%.
Yeah.
But this is my take with that. I feel DeAndre Hopkins is the only exception to this, is because this man, through his career in Houston, has had terrible quarterbacks play. Awful. I don't know if he had Matt Schaub at all, but Matt Schaub is, at the end of his career there was not very good. Granted, he wasn't the best quarterback anyways, but the Texans didn't really have any quarterbacks to base him off of because he's pretty much the only one. They had Tom Savage for a year or two. That guy was terrible. Brock Osweiler. and I think they had like Nate Mullins, T.J. Yates. I mean, just a gauntlet of quarterbacks. But the only thing that remained constant is that DeAndre Hopkins, regardless of who was throwing in the ball, he was gonna ball, and which is why I was so upset when the Texans traded him because he finally has a great quarterback. They have chemistry going, winning some games. They should have beat the Chiefs, number one. Granted, that's not on Hopkins or Watson. They should have beat the Chiefs in that game. But they finally have something going, and then they trade him. So Hopkins, for me, is the only exception to that rule, to your thing, because he is 100% worth every single cent you give him, because he has made it work with awful quarterback play.
He's made it work, but it hasn't translated any playoff wins, has it? One. Like, that's not to say it's because of Hopkins.
But you know who their head coach is? You know who their head coach is?
Okay, and granted,
I'd be a better head coach than Bill O'Brien.
Now, granted, it's the Lions, but Kenny Golladay last year lost Matthew Stafford. I'm sure all fantasy owners probably thought, uh-oh. He was just as good, if not better, without him. And guess what? You know how many games the Lions won without Stafford and Golladay balling? 0, because they lost their quarterback. Golladay made good with bad quarterbacks too, but it didn't translate to any wins. Wide receivers don't translate to wins. That's not to say you don't need them. If you have garbage, just completely garbage wide receivers, you're not going to go anywhere. Look how bad the Patriots struggled last year.
Yeah.
But having stud wide receivers is not the recipe to a Super Bowl. It's not. Like I said, even Tyreek Hill, yes, he's a stud and he won a Super Bowl last year. But he didn't, if I remember right, he didn't even have that great of a game.
I know, and I know he missed a decent amount of time too.
Now, and I know what you're saying. I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I'm just saying stud wide receivers are not what win you Super Bowls. Neither are star running backs. It's offensive line, quarterback, and defense. You look at every Super Bowl winner of the last decade. They're almost always a top 10 defense. Most of the time they have a good quarterback, and if they don't, they have like an incredibly good offensive line and defense. Like, I just don't see the point of giving a wide receiver that much money. Now, if it's $27 million or nothing, like if it's $27 million or he's gone, now like you might have an argument there, but I still would probably say you'd be better off losing him. But like I said, I find it hard to believe they couldn't have settled for something less than that. And the dude he didn't even need to be extended for another 2 or 3 years. So I don't get it. But
yeah, it was a little. It was a little interesting to see that they did the extension now.
I mean, maybe they just wanted to make the guy really happy, and thought maybe it'll translate to more success. But I personally don't understand it.
And I agree. Like I said, I agree with you in the fact. I agree 100%. Offensive line quarterback play is what's going to win you ball games, and I agree with that with you still. But DeAndre Hopkins brings something else to the table. Like now, Kyler Murray has a bona fide number one to throw to. Okay, Larry Fitzgerald got like a year.
He already had Hopkins for 3 years though. Like they would have regardless.
Wait, what?
Kyler Murray would have had DeAndre Hopkins for
No, yeah. No, I meant for the foreseeable future. Like obviously you have it for the next few years, but like now you have like for another like 6 years you have it.
Okay, I just want to say one thing, not to interrupt you, but people are gonna call me crazy about this. They already have. You know, whatever. Maybe I am. And if you want to disagree, that's fine. But I guarantee you there's gonna be like somebody the Cardinals already look really good. Let's say the Cardinals win the Super Bowl next year. They're like, see, Nick, that Hopkins extension wasn't bad. It's like, no, I'm not. The extension doesn't take. I'm talking strictly about the extension that takes place in like 4 years. And I'm only saying this because, like I said, people just kept on Facebook my post about it. You win with Murray on with quarterbacks and rookie contracts. Blah 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 blah. It's like people for the upteenth time. 4 years from now, he won't be on his rookie contract. I'm only talking. I just don't get why extending a guy when he's already signed for 3 years for that much money. The next 3 years. Like, I'm just saying the next 3 years, there's nothing that can prove my argument here wrong in the next 3 years. I just want to get that out there because people are going to say it. So, you know what? You can disagree with me if you want, but nothing that happens in the next 3 years can prove my point wrong here.
So we have a couple other extensions to talk about. Browns and Kareem Hunt, 2 years, $13.25 million extension. I like this. I think the Browns have one of the best backfields in all of football with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And now they're locking that up as well too. I like this. Obviously, I think Nick Chubb's a pretty solid running back, but the fact now you also have Kareem Hunt, who can do just as well as Nick Chubb can. You lock him up for a couple years. I like that one a lot too. Hopefully the offense can figure it out.
Yeah. Now, you would think with my take on wide receivers, running backs, I'm not a huge fan of this, but actually I think this is a great deal. See, 3 hours ago I was telling you and Jordan how I think Kareem Hunt's better than Nick Chubb. I think Kareem Hunt's very, very good. Now, it seems weird. Like, somebody messaged me right after that happened, like, oh, I think the Browns giving him 13.5 or whatever you said it was over 2 years is too much for a backup running back. It's like, typically I would say yes, definitely. But Nick Chubb's not making bank right now. And to my knowledge, he hasn't been extended yet or anything, has he?
I don't believe he has.
Yes. So Chubb's not making much right now because he's still in his rookie contract. Now, if you extend Chubb, if they give Chubb Kamara money, that doesn't make sense to me to pay Chubb and Hunt a total of, that would be probably over $20 million, right, for running backs. That would make sense.
Pick
but
one
right
or the
now, exactly. But right now, with Chubb not making much, Hunt making 5.5, they're probably, I would assume they're only paying the two running backs combined like $10 million, or when this extension kicks in. And I personally think Hunt, if I had my choice right now, you can have both of them for free. Which one are you taking? I would take Kareem Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt's a stud. So I like that. I really like that extension. I think that's a good extension. I think Kareem Hunt is a very good running back. Just want to talk strictly sports, but the whole Kareem Hunt situation back then, I mean, say what you want about it. I'm not saying what he did wasn't wrong, but I would have never got rid of him if I were the Chiefs. There's no way in hell. Clearly, they struggled without him. They won the Super Bowl, but you could tell their offense missed Kareem Hunt at times. They got a groove towards the end, but there was a while there last year. You could tell that the Chiefs were struggling without Kareem Hunt until Damian Williams finally kind of figured it out and filled that void. Like, Kareem Hunt, they missed him for a while. He's good.
Yeah.
So I really like this extension.
As far as rushing goes, I believe Kansas City was towards the bottom of the league. I think in like attempts and also like yardage per game or something like that. They were not
like something all of a sudden clicked where Damian Williams kind of found it. But there was a while where Kansas City didn't look like the same team because they didn't have Hunt. Like, I really believe that. Which obviously, like I said, they end up winning the Super Bowl, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. And it goes back to my point I made many times where running backs are they're the easiest replaceable position in sports. But, if you can sign Kareem Hunt for that, I'd take it, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do like this from the Browns. So usually the Browns are in the news for a lot of negative reasons, normally for choking away games, but they did something good.
The Browns are about the only team that get talked about for being consistently terrible. Like, the Cubs get a bunch of notoriety for whatever reason, where, yes, they won a World Series before that, but the Cubs, with as terrible as they've been historically, always get talked about. And then the Browns have been so bad for so long that they're literally talked about more than any team besides, like, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense, but yeah.
Jalen Ramsey, another extension, 5 years, $105 million with the LA Rams. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this makes him the highest paid corner that we've ever seen. I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if that's 100% right or not. It's 100% probably top 3. I'm pretty sure it's first.
Isn't he getting the most for any defensive player, or who? Or was that somebody else?
I'm not sure. It might be. No, nonetheless, he's getting paid bank, and we're not. But Jalen Ramsey, 5 years, $105 million. Thoughts on this one?
First of all, where are the Rams getting all this money? Like, they locked up
LA, Donald, baby. They got money out the wazoo.
I think they've already locked up Goff, Kupp, Woods, Donald, Ramsey now, and they locked up Gurley before they got rid of him. So I'm guessing they're still paying him a decent amount of money. So I don't know where, like, the other people on their roster must be getting nothing. But I have mixed feelings about this because I think either cornerback or DN is the most important position on your defense. Jalen Ramsey is one of the best in the league, if not the best. And besides Donald and Ramsey, the Rams don't have much on defense. They have like two. They're kind of like the Cardinals. The Cardinals aren't a very good defense. They haven't been over the last few years, but they have like two or three of the best players. They got Chandler Jones and Patrick Peterson, but the rest isn't good. So like if you lose Ramsey, that defense might really struggle. So I think it's definitely smart to lock him up, especially considering I think this offense is going to be really good again this year, and they already look like it through 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of money, but nowadays it's just the way it is. So I don't think it's a bad extension, no.
Yeah, I like this. Secondary is extremely huge. I think the defensive line is one of the more, again, kind of like you said, one of the more important positions in football, just because if your defensive line can put pressure on the quarterback, that helps out the secondary a lot. Now, granted, if you come into a situation where you have a trash defensive line, then that means that, it makes it that much more valuable for the corner. Now, obviously, the Rams have a pretty decent defensive line because mainly Aaron Donald's there, and he pressures the quarterback on every single play, it seems like. But Jalen Ramsey, I think this is definitely deserving for him. He's been balling in Jacksonville. He had one pretty bad season there, but for the most part, he played pretty well. And then he's played well while he was with the Rams so far in his short career there. So I like this, locking him up, trying to get some guys established there, keep them around for a long haul, hopefully try and get back to the promised land for the Super Bowl, maybe actually win it this time. But it definitely helps having a lockdown corner like Jalen Ramsey is for sure.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara, 5 years, $75 million for the Nolans Saints. So we got this running back, and we got another one, Dalvin Cook, to talk about after this. Obviously, we're going to start with Alvin Kamara. What do you think about this one? I know if people have watched the podcast in the past and with the thumbs down, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that he's not the biggest on paying running backs, but what do you think about this on whole?
So, anybody who watched the podcast with McCaffrey, they know how I feel about that extension, right? And Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football, probably. He's getting $1 million less than McCaffrey. So this deal could not be a worse deal. It is terrible deal. Now, granted, Kamara had a very good week 1, but Kamara was not that good last year. Not really. Not compared to what he has been.
I know he was injured. He missed a little bit of time.
And, somebody brought it up on, I've seen somebody's comment on, Facebook or something like, oh, he needs Ingram, which I didn't even think about it. It's like, maybe. It might not be a coincidence that the first year it's kind of by himself. He didn't have that great of a year. Now, granted, it's only one game. Like I said, he's done good so far this year. But like I said, running backs, it's not to say you don't want a good one. I think when I say, I wouldn't pay the guy, these people act like I think the team would be better off without him. No. I'm just saying it is and I think you can probably even agree with this. It is the most easily replaceable position in football, at least for, non-special teams.
For, 99% of running backs in the league, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. Because most of the – and the reason I say this, most of the time nowadays, especially in a pass-happy league, the running back is more of a product of the system. I'm going to go back to the Chiefs. The Chiefs really missed Hunt for a while there. But eventually they found a guy to replace him. It wasn't Hunt, but Damian Williams did what he needed, and he probably should have won Super Bowl MVP, right? And, the Steelers, D'Angelo Williams came in for Bell, 3 years ago. He's the third best fantasy running back in football. And then Bell came back, and the guy didn't touch the field. The Cardinals, last year, any running back they put out there would score you 25 fantasy points, and would get you 100 scrimmage yards. Some offenses, the running back does good regardless. So it's such an easily replaceable position. I just don't see the point of paying them so much money. Latavius Murray did just fine last year, right? When he had to play, and they didn't not win. They did just fine. So why pay him that much money? I don't get it.
So if you're
granted, Breeze is going to be gone after this year. So unless they get some free agent quarterback, which I think is unlikely, who knows if there's even going to be a really good one worth a bunch of money. They're not going to be paying a quarterback much money over the next few years. So that would be one argument as to why you should lock up to Kamara. I understand that. But I still don't think you should be giving running back that much money, especially if they're
what is the max?
What if you could pay, how much money they could give towards the defense and offensive line to give whatever quarterback they do get to replace Breeze? to give him plenty to work with.
What's the max you would give Kamara? If you're an NFL GM, you say,
now we'll get
Alvin,
into
I'm giving
Cook
you this.
next, right? And I'm still not a huge fan of it, but Cook's getting what, 12.5?
5 years, 63. Yeah, so. Yeah.
So like, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I can tolerate it. So Kamara, I'd say probably the same ballpark. Like, I don't think either of him or Cook really deserve 12, but I can handle that. Like, I mean, I personally would only want to pay him 10 or 11. But, like, if you do 12, I'd be like, okay, I'm not totally against that. But anything more than that, no way in hell. And 1 million, 2 million, 3 million might not seem like a lot. You know, it's not a huge amount. But when you're working at a cap, you want to save as much money as you possibly can. You don't want to just give away 3 million extra to these guys who shouldn't get it. So I'd say maybe 12, but I wouldn't be very happy with that either.
Okay.
To me, Kamara didn't really play well enough last year to really think he should get. I don't care how well he did. I wouldn't have given him 15 mil, but
I mean, I don't think it's mainly off of last year because, like I mentioned, he was injured a little bit. The games that he played, he didn't do too well, and I think it's kind of mainly what he's done before that. And if that's the case, Kamara, I think we can both agree, probably one of the more solid running backs in the game. So if that's their thinking behind it, based off of what he did before last year, then sure, I could understand. I could understand. So we'll get into your Minnesota Vikings now. Dalvin Cook, 5 years, $63 million. Thoughts on this one? I think you're a little more okay with it. What about you?
I'm okay with it, but I think part of the reason that makes me okay with it is because I expected it to be 15 mil, so I was just kind of like happy with the fact that it wasn't quite as bad as it's like. It's not a good contract, but it's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. So it somewhat makes me more okay with it, right? But like, because I thought he was going to get 15 million. Now, 12.5 is still too much for a running back, I think. But with that being said, he is very, very good. Like, I drafted him on. I keep bringing up fantasy. I know it's different than an NFL game, but I drafted him in fantasy this year. I think he's going to be really good, and he is really good when healthy. Even 12 million is too much, but it's not like, it's not 15 or 16 like Kamara and McCaffrey are making. 3.5 to 4 million is a big difference. So I'm okay with it. I'm not super happy with it, especially considering I think Alexander Madison is very good. I'd almost rather just see them move on, especially if you would have told me we'd start off this bad. I definitely would have said, yeah, just move on and go with Madison. But like, I'd rather see us move on and go with Madison, I think, and then use that money elsewhere, especially with our bad O-line. But I can tolerate 12.5. So I mean, I'm not happy with it, but I'm not super upset about it either.
I think, correct me if
I'm very surprised we got him for less than 13 million.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I would tend to think maybe you're a little okay with it. I believe Dalvin, obviously I'm not a Vikings fan. I've never watched every single Vikings game, and I've watched a fair amount to kind of, know their tendencies and stuff. Mm-hmm. I think you can tell that when Dalvin Cook is on the field and they get him the ball, typically the Vikings are playing a little bit better when it has. Now, I don't mind Kirk Cousins. I don't think he's a bad quarterback like some people do, some people don't.
Yeah,
but when they are fully reliant on Kirk Cousins to ball, usually he's not. But if he can get Dalvin Cook involved in the game, typically the Vikings are doing pretty solid because it takes a lot of that pressure off of Kirk Cousins.
Yes. So the last 2 or 3 years, the Vikings have actually been a fairly good passing team, with Diggs and Thielen and Cousins and whatnot. However, over the last 6 years, the Vikings have just been playoffs, no playoffs, playoffs, no playoffs. Well, the years they made the playoffs and the years they're good is when they can run the ball. Yeah. When we were 13-3, we lost Dalvin Cook his rookie year. He only played the first 2 games. He got injured. He got injured in the 4th game where we lost to the Lions and were then 2-2. We proceeded to go 11-1 without him and made the NFC Championship because McKinnon and Murray did really good. Why? I don't really know. But our run game was just clicking that year. The next year, we couldn't run the football to save our lives. We missed the playoffs. The year after that, we ran the football fairly well, made the playoffs. So, although the Vikings have practically turned into a pass-first offense the last few years, it's when they run the ball that they're good. When they don't run the ball, they sucked.
Mm-hmm.
So, that would support signing Cook, but most of the time it's not up to Cook. Like I said, it's a product of the system. It's most of the time up to the offensive line. If the offensive line blocks, they were good. If they didn't, we sucked. Mm. So, and yes, Cook is I think Cook is very, very good.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just think other running backs could be almost as good. And it's worth it to go use that money elsewhere. But yeah, 12.5 I can tolerate.
And that's kind of why I brought that up. I just think Cook definitely brings for the Vikings standard as far as the Vikings they should be a good team. Obviously, they're 0-2 and they have not looked very good in these first 2 games at all.
Have you watched much of the 2 Vikings teams? Dude,
I a decent amount of both of them.
God, they looked miserable.
It's
they
not
looked
good.
Miserable.
It is not good.
But anyway, got me a touchdown each game, though. I'll take that.
Big fantasy points. Can't go wrong with that. And so, yeah, that was all the extensions we had. We usually don't hear a lot of them. Well, we kind of got 5 of them all in the same week.
Woods each got extended. But...
Okay, yeah. Well, what do you want to talk about that? What do you think about those ones?
It's a little hefty, but if you're going to give all the money to Ramsey, Goff, and Donald already, I guess you can throw all your chips in one basket and hope. I mean, I thought they already did that 2 years ago, and as soon as they lost the Super Bowl, I'm like, oh, their window's closed. But I guess we'll see. I don't necessarily think they're good contracts, but if you're going to give them to everybody and just say, screw it, we're going for it, yeah. It pays off. It's going to hurt really bad, and it's going to take a long time to come back from it. Then hey, they're gambling. So I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, that offense is, like I said, I don't think they really need a Todd Gurley running back. They just need somebody to produce. So far through 2 games, they've done very good running the football. 1 game it was Brown, 1 game it was Henderson Jr. So giving all your money to Kupp, Woods, Goff with a decent line they got right now, and then putting the rest of their money in the 2 good defenders you do have,
yeah,
they're going for it right now, and I commend that. So yeah. I mean, typically I'd be against these wide receiver extensions, but the way they're going about it as a whole with all of their contracts, I don't mind it.
Von Miller is going to be needing season-ending ankle injury surgery. How ginormous of a blow is this for the Denver Broncos?
Huge. Now, granted, it doesn't. I know it's only 2 games, but it doesn't appear as if Denver's going to be quite as good as they thought they'd be. But I actually thought Denver was going to be pretty good this year because of their offense, which is weird. Denver was like the best offensive team in football right away when Manning got there. And then they turned into this team that wasn't very good offensively, and Peyton Manning was terrible when they won the Super Bowl, and they were like the best defense in football. Yeah. And now they're like back to an offensive team again. It's so weird. But I thought their offense would be pretty good this year, and their defense would be kind of lacking, especially with Chris Harris Jr. gone. So, and Miller's not what he once was. I don't care what anybody says, but it's still Von Miller. So losing him, especially when your defense probably wasn't going to be that solid in the first place, yeah, that's a big deal. Very big deal.
It is huge, especially the Denver Broncos. A lot of teams have been hit with the injury bug the first couple weeks so far. But the Broncos have been hit really hard. And the Niners, too. Von Miller got hurt. Cortland Sutton's been hurt. And then also on the defense, A.J. Bouye has been hurt.
Drew Lock hurt his throwing shoulder today.
Drew Lock got hurt. I think Jerry Jeudy someone else, KJ Hamler or someone else got hurt for Denver as well, too.
I don't know about Jeudy, but I doubt it because he had 100 yards today. So.
Yeah, that's a huge blow for the Denver Broncos. This man has been one of the best rushers in football his whole career, ever since he came into the league. So obviously you don't want to see this, especially with Bradley Chubb coming back off of a torn ACL. And, you might have the dynamic duo back again. And then Von Miller gets hurt, and he's gone probably for the whole season. I don't think the Denver Broncos, like you said, are going to be as good as I think we both thought they were going to be when the season started, but injuries are just something you can't predict.
And I didn't think that despite the fact there's a bunch of talent on that team, I didn't think the Chargers are going to be all that great this year, but they've actually they're darn near 2-0. They darn near beat the Chiefs who went 2-0 this year, and I bet that they're just going to stick with Herbert now. I don't even know how bad Taylor's injury is, but I bet they're just going to stick with Herbert now.
Well,
so I think the Chargers could potentially be good too. So that doesn't bode well for the Broncos.
I did read something today that did say that I think it was the head coach. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. That said if Tyrod Taylor is 100% healthy and he's ready to play, then he's going to play. Which I don't really understand. I think Justin Herbert played pretty well. Granted, yeah, he had a couple boneheaded plays, but he's a rookie in the NFL. You got to give him some slack.
He had a rush touchdown, and I think for sure one, maybe two pass touchdowns.
So he did play pretty well. I thought he was the most NFL-ready quarterback out of all the ones that were drafted this year.
Should be,
I'm not sure why. I mean, we knew that they weren't going to be playing. We've talked about this before, but I think he played well enough to. I think he definitely deserves to be starting again. But Chargers have a plan. They're an NFL franchise, so you hope that they know what they're doing with this. I don't know. So that's the NFL talk that we have. Not a whole lot for MLB going on. That's kind of in the playoff races now. Few teams have clinched. So really, the only thing with MLB that is going to be talked about is pretty much the postseason locations. So I'm not even really. What's that?
Maybe you know better than me. I'm going to go to the standings right now to see if there's going to be any fight for the playoffs. To my knowledge, there won't be.
So right now, the playoff locations, the NLDS will be playing in Arlington where the Rangers play, and Houston where the Astros play, and then the ALDS will be played in San Diego where the Padres play, and LA where the Dodgers play, and then the ALCS is in San Diego, NLCS in Arlington, World Series in Arlington. So it is a little interesting how the NL teams are playing in the AL parks and AL teams are playing in the NL parks. I don't really understand that a whole lot. But, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's geographically wise, it made more sense for them to do that. I'm not really sure. But
so two things. By the way, the Patriots have first and goal at the 1 yard line with 3 seconds left, down by 5. So, holy cow, that's gonna be interesting. So baseball. I'm just looking at the standings. The American League, it's pretty much set the teams. I think like the Orioles and Mariners are like 4 games out or something, but it's unlikely. There will be a race for the last spots in the National League, which could be interesting. We got. I mean, the first and second are pretty much determined, but you got those 2 wild cards. You got the 500 San Francisco Giants, the 500 Reds, the 500 Brewers, the 27 and 26 Phillies. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams right there fighting for the last 2 spots. So it will be a little interesting in the National League towards the end of the year, especially with the Reds and Brewers there, in the same division. But other than that, yeah, the playoffs are pretty much set. It's just about seeding, but it doesn't matter as much this year as it normally would with the no true home field.
Nothing quite like MLB playoff races, though, that's for sure. They're one of the funnest things in sports.
By the way, I think home field matters less in baseball than it does any of the other major sports. It just seems like it does. I don't think the fans have as much impact. The Twins last year were one of the best road teams in baseball history. One of the best in history. Well, this year, without any fans, they're 12 and 17 on the road and 21 and 5 at home.
Wow.
Explain that to me.
That I cannot explain that to you. And it does look like
the Yankees
Seattle
are 21 and 7 at home, and they're 10 and 15 on the road. So very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. I think we are getting a little bit both distracted here by the Seattle game, 35-30. I think they did end up pulling it out.
Dude, okay. So I'm just looking at the standings here. Something's wrong. I'm looking at everybody's home and away.
Yeah.
It says the Washington Nationals are 4 and 7 at home and 0 and 0 on the road.
They have not played a single game on the road, huh?
There's a little bit of a typo or something there. What the heck?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Thing. But anyways, yeah, MLB playoffs. I'm certainly looking forward to that. Embarrassing that out of that 16 teams make the playoffs, my Rockies more than likely are not going to be one of them. So that's good.
Like, obviously the playoffs for every sport are more exciting and are awesome, but I think the percent of, like, what's the word I want to use? Like, the percent of quality between regular season to postseason is higher in baseball than any of the other major sports. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yep.
Like, everybody loves the regular season NFL football, so obviously everybody loves the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But everybody's already invested in the regular season. Like, baseball jumps so much. Hockey probably too is very close. But baseball, like NFL football, playoff football is the exact same as regular season football. It's just win or go home, and it's more on the line. Baseball, literally, the game of baseball itself, like, changes from regular season to postseason. The way pitchers are used, I mean, is the main thing. But the game literally, like, changes. It's played differently, and baseball is the kind of sport, like, in professional sports, the best team can lose to the worst team on any given night. But in basketball, one of the top 3 teams is almost always going to win the finals. Super Bowl, the best team's not going to win all the time because all that you need to do is lose one game. But it's normally one of the teams with the bye almost every year. Baseball, like, anybody, you make the playoffs in baseball, you get a shot every year. The Giants have won 3 in the last decade. I don't think they won the division any of those years. The Royals made the playoffs, made the World Series twice. They were for sure a wild card one of them. Like, the way baseball is, you never know who's going to win in the baseball playoffs unless the Yankees play the Twins. The Yankees are going to win.
Yeah, that's one of the few givens in MLB sports.
But with that
MLB
being
playoffs
said, even
is
if
that they're going to
play
win.
the Yankees, which is very likely at this point, which ticks me off, it happens every darn year. The Twins could be the 33rd seed out of 30 teams and make the playoffs, and they'd still play the Yankees. With that being said, I'm still very, very excited for it. Give me some Twins playoff baseball, baby.
Maybe I'll be a bandwagon Twins fan in this playoffs since the Rockies.
Who just clinched, like, yesterday, by the way. But in this year, where, like, half the teams make it, which is so dumb, and you can't even have, like, real celebrations this year. Anyways, it wasn't really that special because postseason clinching in baseball is so fun on a regular season, on a regular year, because it's by far the hardest sport to make the playoffs in. It's not even a question. Out of major 4, because less teams make it, and you have to be good for 162 games. So it's just awesome. But this year it kind of got ruined with that.
Yeah, playoff baseball is really unmatched for me. Now, granted, I'm biased. I'm a baseball guy. You're a baseball guy, but it really does hit.
And honestly, this year it's going to be good because there's going to be. I still think it's, and I think you agree, it's totally dumb that there's 16 teams making it this year.
Oh yeah.
But it's going to be really good this year because I think the Dodgers are going to be the heavy favorite. They should be. But in the AL especially, like, it's going to be super competitive. The White Sox, A's, Rays, even the Twins, the Yankees have won 10 in a row before today. The Indians with that pitching, like, who knows what's going to happen in the American League? I mean, and even in the NL, you got the Padres who are slugging it with the best of them, the Braves. It's going to be a good playoffs.
Be a dogfight. It is going to be a dogfight. So moving to some NHL news, the Capitals got a new head coach. Peter Laviolette is going to be the new head coach for the Capitals. He last coached in the NHL with the Nashville Predators. He was the head coach on the Stanley Cup Nashville Predators that ended up losing to Pittsburgh in 2017. So obviously the guy is really solid. He was fired on January of this year. The Predators started off 19-15-7. But he has had success. Obviously has not always won it all. But it is kind of cool that the Capitals got another guy that has found success, that has not won a Stanley Cup as a coach, but has gotten there.
You win a Stanley Cup, and 2 years later you have a new coach.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been with a few teams throughout his career. He was with the Islanders for a little bit, Carolina, and Philadelphia, and he actually did win the Stanley Cup. I did forget about that. I forgot until now that he did win it with Carolina when Carolina won the Stanley Cup in the 05-06
Eric
season.
Stahl was on that team, right?
I believe so. Yeah. So he's made the playoffs a lot in his career. I like this for the Capitals. Obviously, Ovechkin, I think he can put up points regardless of who's the head coach. But if they have a coach like this who has had a lot of success, I like this a lot for them.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously got the talent there, so we'll see what happens. I mean, honestly, it's kind of cool that a team won the cup and then 2 years later they already have a new coach. You don't see that very often. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know enough about the guy to really say more, to be honest. But
Jonas Brodin, 7-year, $42 million extension. Minnesota Wild are pretty much going to be taking up the hockey talk today because we got a few different things. Brodin, 7-year, $42 million extension with the Minnesota Wild. From what I've heard and from what I know, obviously defenseman. He doesn't score a lot. He's not going to go out there and get you a lot of points. But as a defenseman, if he's not scoring you points, at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. As long as he can play defense is what it comes down to.
Well, for the Wild, that's pretty important because Matt Dumba's like one of the best scoring defenders in the league, but he's a pretty bad defender. Like, he's a good defending defender.
Yeah, so not like Tyson Berry.
if you're going to have the score-happy defender who's not, in my opinion, the greatest defender, you better have a defenseman who's actually a really good defenseman but doesn't really score. So, and I think most Wild fans are like Brodin. So, I mean, that contract ain't too bad. So.
And I know talking to you, obviously you know him too, Nathan Farber. He's a huge Minnesota Wild fan. Talking to him about it, he seemed to like it. He's one of the biggest Wild fans that I know, and if he likes it, then it's probably a good deal.
He likes the Wild. Farber. I don't know if you're watching, but yeah. Thanks for tagging us on Facebook, by the way. Or did you tag us?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was Facebook. Yep. Yeah, appreciate it.
But I do like this a lot for the Wild, locking up some guys that are solid. Personally, I think the Wild should rebuild. Now, I think they've maybe started that process.
I agree.
But I
do
think
could argue they are because they got Fiala's young, and then they got Kaprizov or whatever.
Yeah, Kaprizov.
That some people think.
Hockey name. It's hard.
Yeah,
hockey
the next
names are hard.
Real. People think he's going to be the next real deal. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I personally think they should rebuild, but we'll see. Although the way hockey is, though, it's like you can rebuild and accidentally be good. It's just the way hockey goes, sometimes it just takes a couple of guys to click. When you can win a game with 2 goals, you could score 2 goals 4 straight games and win all 4. Sometimes it just takes one goaltender to get hot, or and if you just find a couple guys that work really well together, who knows what the hell can happen in hockey. So, but yeah, I think they should take the rebuilding approach.
The worst place that you want to be is in the middle. And the Wild are not a playoff contending team, but they're not the worst team in the league. If you are in the middle, that is the absolute worst spot to be. You should either be.
Tanking is like technically illegal, but like if you're not going to win at all, you best suck. I mean, I guess I'd rather see my team. If you're gonna make the conference championship or whatever, fine, that's pretty exciting. But like if you're gonna be 8-8, you might as well be 2-14 if we're talking, football. I just did that because it's easy. That's easy to calculate than 82 games. Like the Cowboys are like walking mediocrity for most of the last few years, right? They're always 8-8. Well, it's hard to get any better because you're not getting the best draft picks you can get, So, like the Detroit Pistons are the NBA's example of that. They keep getting like the 8 or 9 seed in the East. It's like you're not good, especially if you're only getting 9th in the East. But then you're not getting good enough draft picks to better yourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah. You don't want to be in the middle. Exactly right.
The Wild also trade Stahl to the Sabres for Marcus Johansson. Get rid of a pretty big contract there. Stahl, solid player, but again, I think the Wild are going in the direction that they should be going in, which is blow everything up, start from the beginning. Let's see what can happen.
Yeah.
And granted, I don't know too much about Johansson, but Stahl, obviously a solid scorer in the league.
And obviously, I think Stahl already has. I'm pretty sure Stahl is on the Hurricanes team, so I think he already has won his cup. But it's nice to see a guy like that who's had probably a borderline Hall of Fame career have a chance now at the end of his career again to really win, because he probably has a better chance there than with the Wild.
Yeah. Buffalo is a team that I feel they should be better, but they always underachieve every single year. They got Jack Eichel there. He's a great player, but I don't know. They need to figure it out because they should not be not performing.
I don't trust in the Wild going anywhere though. So I mean,
no.
Unless you're going to the Red Wings, I think you. I mean, if you were going to the Red Wings, then I wouldn't have said that. But
oh man. And then they also got Mikko Koivu. They're not bringing him back as well too. Obviously, captain of the team has been around the team for a long time.
17 years, I think.
Something like that. Never was really a top player in the league, but as far as if you want this guy being a captain, he's definitely worth that regard. It's obviously never great to see your captains leave, but
face-off machine.
Yeah.
Always won face-offs, at least to my knowledge. He's like if you think Cardinals, you think Larry Fitzgerald, right? You think, they got a long franchise, but it's kind of like Cardinals, Stan Musial, right? Nowadays it'd be Albert Pujols, but like there's some guys you just associate a team with, right? Well, the Wild, maybe some people would say Gabriel because he's the best player we've ever had, but if you think Wild, it's Mikko Koivu. He's been there 17 years.
I certainly think that.
His whole career, he's been with us. He's been pretty solid for all of them. He's declined a lot, obviously, recently, but, he's like the billboard for the Wild, right? So it's always tough to get rid of those guys, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just best to move on. It's not necessarily the easy thing, but if you want to make anywhere, you want to start over, those are the guys that unfortunately kind of have to start with. And it's a good choice, hard choice, but a good one. Big Ten. We're going to be having football for the Big Ten now, Mr. Doetkott. I know you're pretty happy about this. What do you think about it?
No, I'm pumped. You could probably somewhat call me a bandwagon fan for the Gophers in the sense that I've always been a Gopher fan first. But, I'll be honest, I didn't care that much about college football, at least not Gopher football, until they were actually something to watch. And, last year, dude, I couldn't believe how fun I had watching Gopher football last year. That Penn State game is one of the most entertaining, one of the best feelings I've had watching a sports game my whole life. That game was so awesome. And the Gophers they should be pretty good this year. And it really sucked that we weren't going to get to see them. And I think in large part, that's why Bateman decided not to come back. However, now, not only is Big Ten back, Rashad Bateman's back, or at least he's back in school and is waiting to see if he can play, which I don't know how that all works, but I would imagine he's going to be able to. I sure as heck hope so. Because I think the Wild, they've taken all the Big Ten and Pac-12 teams out of the rankings for now, but at the time, the Wild were 17. Well, I'm guessing if Bateman were there, they would have been 12 or 13. The dudes might be the best, probably not, but might be the best wide receiver in the nation. And if he's back, the Gophers, I'm not saying they will, but that's a team that can go undefeated, especially considering they don't play Penn State, Ohio State this year. So I'm pumped. And you start off right away. You don't play any of those weak teams right away. We start off with Michigan, and so bring it on, baby.
I think this is going to be the most fun that a lot of people have had watching college football in a while, just because there really isn't going to be those throwaway games. Every single game
right now,
for the most part, should be fun.
Right now, it's to me, it's college football hasn't even started.
Right.
It has, but it's nobody's even talking about it right now. But like a month from now, yeah, it'll be a big deal. Especially for me, considering right now it looks pretty bleak for the Vikings.
Oh, man. I'm sorry.
You're a Dolphins fan. You know the feeling.
Yeah, all too well. All too well.
By the way, when's Tua going to play this year? It's going to happen.
If I'm making a prediction, I'm saying week 5 or 6. It's my prediction. I've been sticking with that. That's.
I'd say week 5 sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know their schedule. Maybe they'll win a game or two here, and then they'll keep him in for a bit longer. But week 5 sounds like a good prediction to me. Which it's a topic for another day. But anybody who's talked to me about it knows I 100,000% disagree with drafting a first-round quarterback and not playing them right away. Unless like you have a guy who the only reason you drafted the quarterback is because you have like a Breeze who you know is going to retire, but for the time you're obviously playing him. Like if you have Ryan Fitzpatrick or Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback, why would you play them over the rookie? The whole reason you got the first rounder is because you sucked. That's how you got your first rounder.
Yeah.
So why just suck again? Like the best way to learn is to go out there and do it yourself, right? Like I never understand drafting these guys in the first round and sitting them. So that's a topic for another day, though.
Nick's very passionate about a lot of things on here. We have to keep him to a limit. We'll get into some playoff updates. First off, NHL Stanley Cup Finals, Dallas Stars, Tampa Bay Lightning. So I guess we'll just make a prediction for that. Obviously, they have already played a game. Dallas already won. I'm still going with Tampa Bay. I think Tampa wins in 6. The fact that they're doing all of this without Steven Stamkos is electric. It's fun to watch. Now, granted, Stamkos is hurt, right? Electric lightning. Yeah, that's good. Stamkos has been hurt a lot throughout his career. But nonetheless, I do like to see what Tampa's doing. I hope they can win it just because also Dallas beat my Avs. So I want to see Tampa Bay beat Dallas.
Before the series started, I was thinking Tampa in 6. Honestly, I'm a little doubtful now that they'll even win after losing one game. I know it's only one game, but Dallas has played good all playoffs. I'll go with Tampa in 7. I want Tampa to win. I'm not a huge fan of either of the teams, but I also don't – I've never really disliked any of them. If the Stars win, it would be yet another former Minnesota franchise that wins a championship because they were the North Stars. But I really – as like just a personal want, I really want Tampa to win. At some point, it kind of feels weird to even root for a Tampa Bay hockey team because I find it hard to believe a lot of people in Tampa even care about hockey. But I don't know, maybe they do. But the team's always there. They're kind of like the Dodgers. They're always there over the last 5 to 10 years, and they just never get it done, just like the Capitals were. And they finally got it done. I'd like to see the team come through and win it for once. And I'm willing to bet Steven Stamkos. I know you said he's injured right now, so it's not quite the same. But I'm willing to bet Stamkos probably has the most goals in hockey the last 7 years, besides Ovechkin. And it would be nice to see him. It'd be nice to see him get one. Although Tampa, obviously it wouldn't be the same feeling, but it would be really a team that got it. But still,
I do think Tampa is a better team. Victor Hedman's one of the best offensive defensemen.
I think they've been the best team all year besides Boston.
Vasilevsky's one of the best goaltenders in the league. They have a really, really solid team. So I'd like to see Tampa win. I've always liked Tampa, so hopefully they can pull that out for sure.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Tampa. I wouldn't mind seeing Dallas win either, but I'm rooting for Tampa.
And then NBA playoffs. We've got the Boston Celtics going up against the Miami Heat. Right now, that series is at 2-1. Western Conference, Lakers up 2-0 on the Denver Nuggets right now. But I want to talk about my Nuggets beating the Clippers, baby. Come back from 3-1 again. This is going to be my moment to shine. Screw the Clippers. You guys have been playing dirty, complaining the entire series. Patrick Beverley playing dirty. Marcus Morris playing dirty. Lou Williams talking. Paul George talking. All talking. Oh, we're up 3-1. No way we're going to lose this. Sorry, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic had other plans. So did old man Paul Millsap coming in there to throw a few jabs too. Thank you, Mr. Paul Millsap. And I don't want to hear this bullcrap excuse, oh, we're tired. Oh, we weren't conditioned. You're an NBA player. You get paid for running up and down a court all day. I don't want to hear you're not conditioned. If Nikola Jokic, the most unathletic player in the game, is able to outpace you on the floor, then you probably have some issues. I just think you sucked and you choked. So sorry about it to the LA chokers.
You ain't sorry.
I ain't sorry. I ain't sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
I am not sorry. But anyways, thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Clippers choked. Go Denver Nuggets. Thank you for listening to that. But anyways.
Now, I don't want to take credit away from the Nuggets, but I'd say the Clippers, at least Game 7, I'd say the Clippers lost it more so than ever won it because they were pitiful in Game 7. But yeah, credit to Denver. They came back 3-1 against a good team twice.
Yep.
And I love to see it because, I obviously wanted the Lakers to play Denver over the Clippers.
Yeah.
Although, and I'm glad it didn't happen, but it probably would have been potentially the most anticipated conference finals in the history of the NBA. Lakers Clippers.
People were talking
maybe
about
not because the season's delayed. Some people probably aren't even watching right now. But God, that would have been an epic conference finals. But yeah, I'm so glad Denver won, and credit to them. Jamal Murray and Jokic balled, and Jokic in Game 7. My goodness gracious!
Could do no wrong.
Game.
Yeah,
the Clippers, man. Whew. Dude, what happened?
Bad.
You got some work to do.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah.
That fourth quarter was miserable. Paul George is not the player I thought he was. Yeah, that was bad. But as far as the rest of the playoffs, I didn't coming into the series, but I now think Miami's going to win. I honestly thought they were going to sweep after they were up 2-0, or a good chance of it. But the way they're playing, they're 10-2 in the playoffs. I think they'll win it. Lakers obviously almost blew one today. That shot by Davis, my goodness, what a shot! So they'll probably make it. If it's Miami versus LA, I mean, it should be a decent finals. But I mean, I can't see anybody really competing with the Lakers. But you never know. We'll see. But if LeBron doesn't win it this year, he has no excuse, and he is going to hear it.
Oh yeah.
The Lakers are huge Vegas favorites right now. So. Yeah, there's no excuse from here on out. Not that there ever was, but there is no reason not to win it now.
Yeah, I think this is the most fun that I've had watching an NBA playoffs. Now, granted, a huge part of it is because my Nuggets are in the conference finals, but just in general, it's been a lot of fun games. A lot of fun games, a lot of really interesting series, a lot of upsets.
There's been a lot of really good games.
Yeah.
Like Boston, Toronto, that series was crazy good. Denver, Utah was a good series. Clippers, Nuggets. Obviously, when you come back 3-1, there's a Game 7 involved. I mean, obviously the Heat series haven't been all that great. The Lakers have won 5 both times, but today, Davis won on a buzzer beater. There's been some really good games so far. So
let's see how it all turns out. That's for sure. But that's the episode today. That's all we have to talk about. Nick, you got anything else you want to bring up?
Guess we can talk about we both obviously don't know much about it, but Bryson DeChambeau won by 6 shots at the U.S. Open. That's impressive. That deserves a mention.
Difficult course.
I can't believe how difficult that course is. I can shoot on an easy Minnesota golf course and can barely get a 6 on a hole, even on a par 5. Or even on a par 3, you can barely get a 6. And so if every single professional in the field except one can't even finish below par on a course, I can't imagine how hard that is. My Lord, holy cow! But yeah, impressive. Win by 6 shots. So kudos to him.
Kudos to him. Absolutely. But besides that, not a whole lot else to talk about. We'll be back next week for episode 35. If you want to give us a follow our Twitters at Lucas_Dorton, capital L and D. If you want to follow Nick at Doetkott or Doetkott. And if you want to follow the Twitter page at D&D_podcast, capital D's, capital P for that. Certainly share with your friends, subscribe, get the word out there. If you want to be on a show, talk to us, let us know. We'd certainly like to make that happen for sure. But yeah, that's all we had to talk about, folks. Thank you for listening to episode 34 of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate Podcast, and we will be back next time. As for Nick and myself, we are out.